Welcome. We're going to do the Mangala Charnam first. Okay? Okay. Om Jnana-Timirandasya Jnana-Jana Shalakaya Chakshu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayane Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaura Trishe Namaha Pancha Tattvanakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you guys all for being here. I'm excited to share these stories with you. Some of you have probably already read them. I know Daoji has. He wrote the testimony on the back. And some of you have maybe not yet. It doesn't matter if you have or haven't, or maybe it'll be the next time around for you. You'll get some other insights. But I'm going to read the book from cover to cover over the next 5 months. And the format of it is I'm going to read today, as far as we get, we'll see, because sometimes I'm going to tell stories along the way, more detailed stories. And then everybody who's enrolled, who's registered, I've enrolled you in our online community where you can discuss the book online over the week. You know, you can. That's why we're asking you to register, not only for the head count, but also so we could provide the right food and drinks for the right number of people, but also if you would like to discuss what got triggered in you, some memory you have of Babaji or some insight you have about yourself, that's what the online community is for. So if anybody has not registered, just go on the website under the book club and click there and just put your email. There's no cost, but that's how we can kind of stay as a community and discuss it deeper. Also, next week when we start, I'm going to start it as a discussion. So whatever things get stirred up this week, you know, keep it for either questions or discussions for next Wednesday. And then if nobody has any questions and no discussion, I'll just continue reading. But if you have questions, you have things you want to discuss, next Wednesday we'll start like that. Does that make sense? Just kind of the format? Okay. So let's start. How's it going, Vilas? Good? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start with the dedication. On a very rare occasion, someone can suddenly come into your life and change it completely. And that is exactly what happened to me the first day I met my guru, Sri Satyanarayana Dasa Babaji. In the blink of an eye on January 23rd, 2015, my life began to transform from a place of darkness and confusion to a place of golden light and divine love. And some of you guys know this story, but I met Babaji for the first time just a few hours before I took Diksha. I had never sent an email to him. I had never had a phone call with him. No communication at all. So you remember, I met you a few hours before too, the night before, you know. Jaya's like, get a sari. I'm like, what? I'd never worn a sari. I'd never been to Jiva. And the next morning I took Diksha. So this is a very intense start to my experience with Babaji. I dedicate this work to Babaji, who has selflessly spent his life tirelessly teaching those who are fortunate enough to come into his sublime association. All of you guys know that, right? When I say that, I mean, all of us here in this group have experienced Babaji's association, and a lot of people online might not yet have had that experience of, knowing him personally. So I think this is a special group we have here. Before I met Babaji, I was sad, lost, and confused about love and life. Out of infinite compassion, Babaji took the time to share with me the ancient secrets of the Vedas, which have changed my entire life. There are no words I could write to express my gratitude to this saint. The only thing I can do to honor him is to try to live my life according to the principles of divine love that he has so graciously taught me. So let's start the introduction. So this picture, we have a guest, Ella, here from Poland. This was taken, remember, in Bobolin, Ella and Edita, in Poland, Babaji. And I started off saying I had no idea what it really meant to have a guru until I met Babaji. Although it is true that before meeting Babaji, I did have a guru, Amma, the hugging saint. How many of you guys have had a hug from Amma? Oh. Wow, right? So you know who I'm talking about. Yeah. Amma, the hugging saint. She gives really good hugs, and Hershey kisses. Amma, the hugging saint. My relationship with Amma was not personal because she had hundreds of thousands of followers, so it wasn't possible to know her intimately or for her to know me in a personal way. Consequently, after I took formal initiation from Amma, not much changed. I just went about my life as usual and periodically enjoyed the gatherings when Amma came to town. We would eat good food together and sing devotional songs. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's kirtan. We call kirtan, like you, Mom. It's a kirtan. My mom's listening today. Therefore, 5 years later, when I met Babaji and took formal initiation from him as my guru, I approached it very casually, not expecting much change. I actually had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was in for a big shock over the next few years as I continued to jump out of the frying pan and into the fire, trying to avoid all the painful ways that Babaji was trying to invoke change. Originally, I wrote about these moments with Babaji in my personal journal as a way to reflect on and digest them. But over the years, as I heard my clients sharing their struggles, I began to reveal my stories as a way to help them understand the inner workings of their mind. And it seemed to help them. Then I started posting my stories on my blog. The day after each post, my inbox would be overflowing with emails from people sharing similar stories. No matter from what walk of life, somehow they could all relate to my stories. Babaji then explained to me that storytelling is the most powerful way to teach, citing examples of the most exceptional teachers of the Indian culture that employed storytelling. He disclosed that storytelling dates back to the ancient Indian scriptures, such as the famous Bhagavad Gita, which itself is a story. Storytelling is a brilliant way to get the message across to someone without bruising their ego, and that's the key. That's actually something I forgot to say. So last year when I taught Vedic psychology here at the ashram, I was teaching, the nuts and bolts of the mind. And that was kind of practical, tactical classes for those of you who participated. So this is a very different approach. This is actually Vedic psychology as well, but it's through a different medium. We're trying to just see, how it works with storytelling. So the idea is not to get too involved in me and my stories or anything like that. It's actually to use hearing these stories as an introspection tool, and to be like, oh, could I also have something like that that's similar to me, So I just wanted to say that up front, because some people who've read this book or heard the stories, they're analyzing me, and I'm like, that's fine, you can analyze me, but just if you can, try to put it on you yourself and see, can I relate to that character in some way, Okay. So for no one likes it when their mistake or their character flaw or inadequacy or stupidity is pointed out directly. It is much more enjoyable to hear a story of someone else's ego getting smashed. So with that inspiration, I set forth to write a book, basically of my ego getting smashed, of all these stories. So this book contains 11 chapters. Each one is a window into one of my experiences of being faced with all the uncomfortable ways in which I was stuck. Each chapter ends with some of my reflections on how things might have been different if I hadn't been so averse to change, concluding with the final lesson learned. So each chapter, if you guys have the physical book, you can see the way we wrote it was we put, I'm saying we because after I wrote it, I gave it to Babaji. And he also went through the whole thing and added in his parts. So if I'm like, and Babaji said, he's like, actually, and he would add more. So we wrote this together. These are all, everything in quotes is coming directly from him. So at the end of every chapter is a lesson learned, and you can see, let's see, chapter 1, for example, if you go to page 27, you'll see that there's the lesson, right? So there's a lesson learned of the first chapter, and then the next side, next page, it says insights. So it's almost like a journal, where you can write what your insights were, what your lessons learned were, you know? So that's, if you like to use it like that, you can. Okay. So where did I leave off here? I have also included some space at the end of each chapter for you to reflect upon each story and to jot down your own insights or lesson learned. Other thing I want to say, some of you know this and some of you don't, but these stories all come from mostly from the very beginning of when I got to know Babaji about, I've known him for 10 years, but the first few years. Because in those years, we were traveling and teaching Vedic psychology around the world. And that's when I could not escape. It's easy if you're at the ashram and you're like, Hari Bol, and you can go in your room and do your nonsense or whatever. But when you're traveling, you cannot escape. I was like under the microscope and I didn't know it because he was always just acting normal, But he would put me in situations to like really, that I could really not get out of whatever the issue was that he saw, And at the beginning I was like, is he really doing, he couldn't be doing that to me. He's not doing that. And then I'm like, oh my God, he is doing that to me. He is doing that to me, And then I would ask him directly, I'm like, are you trying to make me? And he's like, no. And so it was so hard, and that's what these stories are about. Okay, so let's start with the first one. So Amma's blessing in disguise to me. Have you ever heard the saying, the worst times are clearing us out for life's greatest delights? Sorry. Okay, have you ever heard the saying, the worst times are clearing us out for life's greatest delights? The only problem is, when we are in the thick of it, we often don't realize that at all. This was surely the case for me as I sat crying on the hard concrete floor, hunched over a tub of Nutella at the Amritapuri ashram in Kerala in India. My roommate was attempting to pull me out of my funk by trying to persuade me to join her for dinner. But I was flatly refusing. The only solace I could find was in the blob of sweet, creamy hazelnut chocolate spread on the tip of my finger. You see, I had just been rejected by my guru, Amma the Hugging Saint. Perhaps you know of her? You may have even had a hug from her. She travels around the world, tirelessly spreading her message of love. Last I checked, Amma had hugged a record 34 million people. Yet this depressing December day in 2013, I didn't feel any love at all. The irony was not lost on me. I was at the mother of all love's ashram, yet I could not feel her love. And even though all the trappings were there to set the mood of love, I still could not get into that groove. Amma's ashram is set in South India on the lovely, lazy backwaters. A perfect backdrop for the all-night kirtans, the singing devotional songs that invoked a mood of reverence for God. Yet my only devotion on that particular night and particular afternoon was to my emotions that were driving me to sulk in my room. It didn't matter to me that I might miss Amma's spontaneous inspirational talks on the beach or the fresh, hot, crispy crepe-like masala dosas with delectable coconut chutney. As the palm trees swayed in the breeze, trying to shush my anxious heart, I just could not relax. Even what the locals call God's own country could not pacify my agitated mind. Why? Because I had actually come to Amritapuri on a mission. I had come specifically to ask Amma to bless my book, for it was only with her approval that I felt comfortable to move forward with getting it published. This was a very simple handbook on Ayurveda. It was my summary of the main points I had been teaching my clients over the years. I had spent the last 12 months perfecting this practical step-by-step guidebook. I even went to the extent of asking my friend, who speaks Amma's native tongue, Malayalam, to translate my dedication page. That way Amma would be able to read it and I could be sure she knew just how devoted I was to her. I'm special. Ahankara characteristic number what? That way, Amma would be able to read it, and I could be be sure she knew just how devoted I was to her. I fantasized about watching her divine eyes delighting in the lines of my book as I sat at her lotus feet. I would watch her dark brown finger trace the words, "All proceeds from the sale of this book go to Amma." I bow down in deep gratitude to Amma for touching my heart, inspiring me to help others with Ayurveda and psychotherapy, and to persevere when I just wanted to give up. I imagined Amma's eyes lighting up with surprise, like she had just won a pot of gold. So this is to the extent that ahankara can make you think you're great, you know? Amma has millions of followers, you know? My book probably would have sold 10 copies, and I'm like, I think that Amma's going to be so impressed with my book. Out of a feeling of overwhelming gratitude, Amma would give me a huge hug and thank me for dedicating my work to her. I daydreamed that my act of selfless love and devotion to her would make Amma so happy that she would not only bless the book, but also, like that wasn't enough, but also she would invite me to live at her ashram in South India as a resident healer and author. I played this dream out in my head over and over again. I didn't keep this dream just to myself. Oh no. I shared my dream with my mother, who lived just 1 hour away. Okay, Mom, it's your turn to say hi. Vilas, can you pin it so everyone can see her? Can you get it off of mute, Mom, so you can say hi? Or Fred, is Fred there to help you? Is Fred there? I don't know how to unmute it. Can you do it, Vilas, on your side? No?
There's a thing.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you're unmuted, but now it's frozen.
You might be sorry.
Oh, yeah, there you are. We see you, Mom. Okay, now I'm going to tell a story about you.
Lost his phone, here it is.
Okay, we see you. Okay, so now listen to the story about you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Okay?
You have a story about me?
Yes, listen. And be muted. Okay. And just agree with everything I'm saying. Okay. So I shared my dream with my mother, who lived just 1 hour away. I would escape to the little island she lived on in southern Florida for weekend retreats. We would take relaxing walks on a private beach, swim leisurely laps in her backyard pool, sip our creamy coffees, and have long, loving talks. My mom would always listen attentively to all my dreams and plans, encouraging me to pursue whatever made me happy. No matter how far away or off the beaten path my dreams were, she always supported me. And my mother's support was no different for this venture to India. She was by my side, listening to my hopes for the future and quietly supporting me in her gentle way. To prepare for my trip, I had printed my book out on special paper and carefully placed the dedication page to Amma into a shiny, transparent, protective cover. So kind of like this, you know? And I packed it up, got ready to go to India, so it wouldn't get destroyed or tarnished on my nearly 48-hour journey from Florida to India. Before I packed it in my carry-on bag, I read it aloud to my mother. She sat with a proud smile on her face, absorbing each word I had written on the dedication page. When I looked up from reading, I saw her eyes were filled with tears as she softly said, "You are such a good writer, Jess, and you are a very loving person. Amma is lucky to have you." With that vote of confidence from my mom, I departed on my long journey to India, feeling eager to share this expression of my love with my guru. I was so fired up to finally show Amma my masterpiece that on my multiple flights and tedious taxi rides to reach Amritapuri, I took my book out countless times just to make sure it still looked perfect. You know when you're worried about something? I had it like in my bag and I was checking like, okay, the page is good, okay, you know, and then I put it back. And then the next flight or the taxi ride, I just was really anxious, I think, about having it all look nice and presentable, you know? So Therefore, can you imagine my surprise when I completely lost my nerve to present my book to Amma when I arrived at the ashram after all that? Maybe it was the sheer size of the place, with hundreds, no, more like thousands of people there. I felt like a small fish in a big pond, and I felt so insignificant. Who am I to go show my book to Amma? After all that daydreaming, you know. Maybe it was also because my nature is shy and introverted. I would rather hang in the back and just observe than be in the front and center. And presenting Amma with my book was a very front and center kind of activity. I knew this after having watched others do it with their own books over the years. The process goes something like this. The person walks on their knees across the stage to greet Amma, who is sitting on a royal throne, type of throne, looking over a sea of people. Have you guys ever seen her? Anybody? You've seen Amma? So once you get onto the stage, just say Amma's here. You have to go on your knees so you can be in the exact position to get in her heart to get the hug. So you're already which is already awkward enough. I mean, unless you're really limber in your body, but I'm not. So I was already uncomfortable enough on the knees. And then there's people around her and they take your head and they push you in her chest. It's really like you get manhandled. So, where was it? So Amma is also surrounded by many helpers. There's there to expedite the whole process. They do so by briskly pushing the person to quickly make their offering to this hugging saint. Thousands of people wait anxiously for their turn to see Amma, begging her to heal all kinds of ailments, from broken hearts to broken bones to broken homes. When the proud author gives Amma their book, she holds it and she looks at it so lovingly, like the first time a mother looks at her beautiful newborn baby. Next, Amma puts the book to her heart or to her forehead. And then finally she lifts it to the sky and she looks to the heavens and she blesses the book, So if it's your turn and you're an author, I've watched it for years, and they have a screen, a huge screen, like you're at a drive-in movie or something, a big screen. So if you're sitting in the back and there's thousands of people, you can see a close-up of that person giving the book, So I watched it for years. And they give the book to Amma, and she's like, she almost has tears in her eyes, like she's so touched by the book. I don't even know what the book says. It doesn't matter. But every time she'd always look like that. And she'd be like, So that's what I thought was going to happen. Who wouldn't, right? But here's what happened, actually. I had played and replayed this scene in my head dozens of times, waiting for that magic moment for my guru to bless my book. But now I was dragging my feet. I'd been for the whole week, actually. I was there for a week, and I didn't do it. She had multiple times you could have gone, but I did not go. I had done everything there was to do at the ashram. I loved singing along with the hundreds of others at Amma's all-night kirtans. And of course, I loved the indulgences, which included drinking bottomless cups of chai, shopping at Amma's store filled with beautiful Indian artifacts, seeing a Vedic astrologer, learning the integrated Amrita meditation technique, and even getting a hug from Amma. Yep, that's right. Over the 9 days I'd been there thus far, I had waited in that dreadfully long line on 2 occasions to get less than a 30-second hug from Amma. I mean, you can wait for 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours. So obviously, I was there on a mission to bring my book to get blessed, right? But I waited in that hot, sweaty line for all those hours, and I didn't bring the book. Twice I did that, until it was time to go, and I really had one last choice, one last option to do it. So I did not present her with my book either time. The only activity I had neglected was the very one I came for, to present Amma with my book. And that is precisely the reason why I could not relax into this glorious place. Finally, it was my last night at the ashram. I knew it was now or never. As I looked at my book one last time, holding it in my shaking hands, I felt dizzy with anticipation. Tenderly running my fingers over the dedication page, I thought about how relieved I would feel after I had presented it to Amma, and how it would all be worth it after seeing her happy face. I was confident all my fears would vanish in that moment. I told myself that Amma was so full of love, that all she can give me is love, so what did I have to fear? As I stood in the familiar line with thousands of other hot, sweaty people, waiting hours on end for my turn, I passed the time by watching Amma on the mammoth-sized screen on center stage. Even though to the naked eye, Amma looked like a dot, thanks to the huge screen, I could watch Amma close up and be a part of each loving embrace. She kissed away their tears, held them as they released their pain, stroked their hair, and told them everything was going to be all right. One young man who looked like a professor type, wearing a neatly pressed pastel blue button-down shirt tucked into his khaki pants and smart spectacle glasses, presented Amma with his book. It was a hardback. I was surprised. It was already published. Oops, because mine wasn't. Mine was like this, you guys. It wasn't even bound. It was just the pages like this, you know? So already I saw that and I'm like, uh-oh, a hardback published book. Should I run? And this is an ahankara characteristic. Do you know which one it is? What ahankara characteristic is that? That I see the guy presenting his hardback book and I realize mine is like this. Huh? What ahankara characteristic is that? Comparison. Doing it all the time. Okay. So where was I? Okay. Yes, comparison. So my ahankara was shaking already, like, oh my God, his is better than mine, shoot, you know. It would have been great if he tripped and fell. You know? Or if she took the book and threw it, then I would have been like, whew, my ahankara is back in its rightful place, and I'm better than you. Okay. So I was surprised it was already published. I thought it would only be proper to have Amma bless the book before publishing. But this guy had the nerve to get it published first. Now, what's that? Does that relate to ahankara, do you think, at all? Use the mic. Use the mic.
So it's a criticism?
Why?
Because you focus on whatever tiny fault there might be, and in order to put the other one down so that you can be,
I
so
can
we
feel better.
can be up again.
Very good.
And better. So
Yeah.
it's competitive and criticism.
Yep. Because just say that I was not comparing with him, and my ahankara was like being humble. I would be like, oh wow, that's so cool, he already got it published. Just say it was like my husband or my brother, someone who was, you know, my ahankara identified as part of me, you know. I would have been like, wow, that's so cool he got it published. She's definitely going to bless it. She's going to be so happy that he's already shared it with the world. He's already got it published. But because I felt inferior to him when I saw his was already published, then my ahankara quickly thought of a very good reason to be like, a very good rationalization, right? Like, the nerve of him. He didn't ask his guru first. How could he get it published without getting it blessed by her? That's because I saw him as against me. Dao, did you need some tea or something? You want some water or tea? We have some. Did she take it all? Or here, you can give him this. Okay. Okay, does that make sense? Our friend ahankara always flares up. Always, it's all weaved through here. But you have to read it with that lens, looking to see. Okay. So, yes, it would have been proper, wouldn't it, to have Amma bless the book before publishing? But this guy had the nerve to get it published first. Then look at, or on second thought, maybe I should have had my book published first. You see how you can use your ahankara, the buddhi. You know, then the buddhi kicks in and goes, whoa, the buddhi is the thing that enables you to introspect. So the ahankara makes you analyze other people and criticize. And then if the buddhi can kick in, then it's like, well, what about me? You know, maybe I should have done that instead of doing it, you know, criticizing the other person. So I should have had my book published first and then presented to Amma. As the line inched closer, I felt dread. Oh no, my book isn't published. Maybe I did this wrong. That guy already published his book and it looks like he's giving it to her as a gift. Mine is just some flimsy printed out pages that look like crap compared to that beautiful hardback. Maybe I should just duck out of the line now and forget it. I started sweating. I could feel the streams of sweat pouring down my back. My legs were shaking. I didn't want to stay in that line. I wanted to run to my room and just get the hell out of that ashram altogether. Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am, please move forward. You're holding up the line. The crowd control person snapped me out of my worry for a moment. I moved ahead in the line and was now at the base of the stairs leading up to the stage. I could see Amma clearly and caught the smell of her sandalwood rose scent, which usually made me feel so relaxed. But this time I only felt trepidation. I looked at Amma, so calm and happy and peaceful. I scolded myself, stop worrying, just knock it off. You can't turn back now. Give her the book and it will all be fine. As I climbed the stairs to the stage, which felt so insurmountably steep, and like I had 100-pound weights tied to each of my ankles, my stomach was in knots. I felt like I was going to have diarrhea. I clenched my teeth, and with all my might, I lifted one heavy foot in front of the other to make it onto the stage. Amma's helper instructed me to get on my knees. I sheepishly mumbled that I'd written a book. I wanted to present to Amma, my shaking fingers fumbling over the dedication page, made especially for Amma to read. Amma's helper coldly nodded and roughly pushed my back. They're very, just think of the hundreds and thousands of people they have to manage. They're not like, oh, that's so nice you wrote a book. They're just like, move along, you're holding up the line, I'm going to have to work till 5 a.m., It's like that. Okay, as I lurched forward from the momentum of her harsh shove, the back of my right thigh cramped up. Have you guys ever had a Charlie horse? We call it in the U.S. It's when the back of your thigh cramps up. It is the worst, right? And I was on the stage on my knees, with thousands of people. It was so embarrassing to have it. I mean, it's bad enough to have one, but to have it in that situation, And I couldn't do anything, So ow. No, where is it? My right thigh cramped up. It felt like someone had smashed it with a hammer. Ow, I yelped, grabbing my leg and falling to the ground. I was like rolling around the stage. It was so bad. A real life drama unfolding for the thousands of people watching me on the big screen. So embarrassing. Amma's helper callously ignored me and probably kicked me, and demanded I get up, rudely snatching my precious book from my hand. I limped. It was so bad. When it's like that, and it doesn't, the muscle doesn't come undone. It's like you're like limping. So I was like, so I limped the few feet across the stage towards Amma on my knees. Before I could say anything, another helper rammed my head, just like threw it and rammed my head into Amma's heart, and it felt like someone was dunking my head underwater. When you're in the swimming pool, when you're young, and you play, and that's how it felt when they just kind of threw my head into Amma's heart. I was overwhelmed and gasping for air, yet Amma continued to embrace me. Her raspy voice immediately calmed me down as she whispered in her thick Indian accent in my ear, my daughter, my daughter, my daughter, my daughter. That's what she says. She asked her helper first, what language did they speak? And then the helper says, okay, English. And she says, oh, my daughter, my daughter, my daughter. But if they say French, she'll say it in French to you. She knows quite a few languages, like my daughter and my son, Then she released me and smiled as she looked at me with her eyes full of bliss. Amma's helper yanked me out of Amma's arms and placed my masterpiece in Amma's hands. I sat on the floor, trying to concentrate on my guru and ignore the paralyzing pain of my leg cramp. Amma's sweet and smiling expression changed to somber and serious. Sternly, she said something in her native tongue, which her helper interpreted for me. Amma is asking, how do you know this information? I wrote a whole book on Ayurveda. And Amma's like, how do you know? How does this white girl from wherever, not Indian, is writing a book on Ayurveda, basically? I froze. I'd never had a conversation with Amma before. And compared to what I had observed when others gave her their books, her behavior seemed very out of the ordinary this time. I hadn't expected her to ask me any questions. I was caught totally off guard. I stammered, I went to school to learn Ayurveda, hoping that would be enough to pass Amma's test. But Amma kept going with her interrogation. Her helper quipped, Amma wants to know, are you an Ayurvedic doctor? As my face turned crimson, feeling full of shame, I hung my head and I uttered, no. Amma persisted. So why do you think you can write a book on Ayurveda if you are not an Ayurvedic doctor? Do you think you're an expert on Ayurveda or something? I felt embarrassed and overwhelmed. I didn't know what to say. I mumbled something unconvincing as Amma pressed on. And how long did you study Ayurveda? Feeling like an inadequate loser, I wanted to burst into tears. I muttered, 2 years? Amma continued with what felt like a relentless tirade. Oh, so you think you can write a book on Ayurveda after studying it for just 2 years? Have you had any Ayurvedic doctor look at this book? Has any expert approved what you've written? How will you market it? Amma is asking me how I'm going to market it also. How are you going to market it? And who would want to buy it anyway? All right. Then Amma carelessly gave the book back to her helper, discarding it like a banana peel or a dirty piece of tissue. Before I had time to say goodbye to Amma, the next person was already wrapped in her embrace. Like a wet cat, I slunk off the stage. In all my years watching Amma, I had never seen her reject someone's book. See, I was the first. Can this relate to Ahankara in any way? How? Special. Special and unique. I'm the most humble servant. Or, I'm the most fallen servant. You know? Or, I'm the first one who got my book rejected by Amma. That's still Ahankara. It always flares up. Okay. Okay, I'd never seen her reject someone's book. My mind was reeling. Was my book really that bad? Why was she so harsh to me? And now what should I do? I had already put my book publishing date on hold, convincing my publisher to give me just one more month so I could go to India to present the book to my guru. I had assumed that, of course, she would bless it. But that was not the case. I felt devastated as I slowly climbed up the stairs to my hot, humid dorm room. There, my German roommate, a longtime devotee of Amma, listened to my story carefully. With compassion, she told me that Amma does everything out of love. She explained that though I cannot see it now, what she said to me was for my own good. She told me stories of how Amma can see the past, present, and future of a person, and so her actions are based on a much wider lens than what is happening in the moment. My roommate advised me to see Amma's rejection of my book as a positive thing. However, I could not bend my mind in that way. The only positive thing for me in that moment was that the Nutella tasted very good. A sweet balm on my tongue, and a small consolation for the bitter taste of my broken heart and dreams. Through tears, I meekly asked my roommate, what good could come out of this? I just don't get it. I just don't see it at all. My roommate said I should take time to reflect and also trust that Amma is a master and is steering me in the right direction for my own upliftment. I wanted to believe my roommate's words were true. I really did. So I tried to search for the deeper meaning that night as I cried myself to sleep. The next morning, I made my way to the airport to catch my flight to Delhi to meet Dr. Chauhan. So for those of you who don't know, Dr. Chauhan is Babaji's younger brother, Partap Chauhan. And he was my friend, and I knew him 2 or 3 years before I met Babaji. That's why I took Diksha right away, because his brother said, you need to take Diksha. I booked the taxi, 3 o'clock, you're going. So that's why I came to Babaji through his family. So I met him at the National Ayurveda Medical Conference Association, Dr. Chauhan, in Chicago in 2008. And on page 20, you see a picture of us together there at that conference. Jessica and Dr. Chauhan at the National Ayurveda Medical Association Conference. That's Babaji's brother. Can you guys see it? I don't know if anybody wants to, you can share your picture with those who don't have it. We hadn't seen each other in over 5 years, and I was excited to spend time with Dr. Chauhan at his Ayurvedic clinic. He's a world-famous Ayurvedic doctor and a very generous and amazing man. So in Babaji's family, there's 8 kids, and Babaji's number 2. There's a big brother, Baisab, and then Dr. Chauhan is the baby boy. So there's 5 boys and then 3 girls, and the 5th boy is Dr. Chauhan. So you can imagine having 4 big brothers. He probably learned how to be very good with people, very patient, very good with people, with these 4 big brothers and then him. And then after him came 3 little sisters. So that's his placement in the family. So he's a world-famous Ayurvedic doctor and a very generous and amazing man. He not only taught me about Ayurveda, but he also welcomed me into his family. In no time, I was laughing and sharing stories with his nieces and nephews and sisters and brothers. His family were very open and friendly and full of positive energy. I felt loved and accepted by them in a way that I hadn't felt in years. My depressed mood evaporated amidst their love. Dr. Chauhan casually asked me how my visit went at Amma's ashram. What would you say? You know, the Nutella was good, so I'm trying to be positive. I told him the story of how she rejected my book. As I was recounting the story, I had an idea. I blurted out, So since you are an Ayurvedic doctor, Dr. Chauhan, and an undeniable expert in the field, would you be willing to read through my book and give me any feedback? Dr. Chauhan graciously agreed. I returned to Florida happy, grateful, and eager to receive his feedback. I was beginning to see my German roommate's point about trusting Amma and her mysterious ways. Dr. Chauhan emailed me within a few weeks and said he had read my book and it was just fine. No problems at all. Because you guys, actually, I had such a complex after Amma rejected it. I'm like, this is probably the world's worst book, you know? So when he read it, he was like, yeah, no problem, it's fine. I was like shocked, actually. I was expecting him to be like, just tear it up and burn it, you know? So he said, no problem at all. The information was actually accurate and it was well written. However, he just had 2 questions. He's Babaji's brother, so you can imagine what he's going to ask. First, he said, I had explained in my book how Ayurveda is really about love, but I didn't describe what love actually is. Surprise, surprise, he's going to say that, right? Now don't forget, I didn't even know he had a brother Babaji. He was just my Ayurveda friend, doctor friend, you know, so I didn't know what his secret weapon was, where he was getting, you know, how he knew how to ask such good questions like that. His second point was that I also wrote about soul, but I didn't clearly define or describe that either. He concluded that my book would be complete if I could answer these 2 questions. What is love? What is soul? Like, that's nothing, right? Oh, sure. I felt so happy. Oh, actually, if you can see the picture here, this is the book we actually ended up writing together. It's called Ayurveda, The Path to Happiness with Dr. Partap Chauhan and Jessica Richmond. So that's what we ended up doing. And this you can get on Amazon. It's just an ebook. I felt so happy and relieved to hear Dr. Chauhan's favorable feedback, yet at the same time, I wasn't so sure that I knew the answers to his 2 questions. So I responded to his email with, well, you're the expert on love and soul, not me. You're the one who has taught me about these things. Would you be willing to write about it in my book, and we can be co-authors? Dr. Chauhan generously agreed, and we began a project to revise the book to add in his points. We mostly wrote the book every few weeks by email, squeezing in time for it between our demanding professional lives. Within 1 year, we had completed the revision. So 1 year from when I met Amma. I already wrote the book for a year, you know. I thought I was done. I thought I was just zipping it up, you know, with Amma just blessing it, of course. But actually a whole nother year, we had to rewrite the whole thing to put in all of Dr. Chauhan's points. So within 1 year, we had completed the revision. The publisher, bless his heart, waited patiently over that full year and then finally published our ebook, Ayurveda, The Path to Happiness, in December 2014, so just about 10 years ago. As it turns out, Amma's rebuke that day was surely for my own good. Her harsh words were the exact impetus I needed to move forward on my path. Her rejection of my book prompted me to ask Dr. Chauhan for help. And in asking him to write the book, I received the greatest gift of my life. He connected me to his brother Babaji, the living embodiment of love, and the one through whose sublime association helped me to understand myself, get out of my depression, and find peace. So I did just read a little reflection. So my kind of takeaway on the chapter, there's many things I could have taken away, but I just wanted to put one here, is that if I could, you know, the whole book actually for me is mostly about my ahankara. Me kind of telling the story and then reflecting and being like, whoa, what was my ahankara doing? You know, because obviously when the stories happened, I didn't even know what ahankara was. I hadn't met Babaji, and Dr. Chauhan was teaching me more Ayurveda. Ayurveda mind stuff, maybe more like sattva, rajas, tamas type of thing, not about the 4 parts of the mind, you know? So I didn't even have that tool to analyze myself. So now later on when I wrote this, then I went back and analyzed. And I said, if only I could have accepted Amma's rejection that day, maybe I would not have had to suffer so much. If only I could have trusted my roommate's wise words, maybe I could have seen the Guru's grace on that very day. If only I could have understood Amma's harsh message, maybe I could have felt her tremendous compassion. It makes me wonder how many other times in my life I've resisted goodness out of my own blindness. I wonder how many times I've cried tears of sadness from feeling rejected when actually they should have been tears of gratitude. So the lesson I learned was accept rejection with an attitude of gratitude and keep moving on. So that's the end of the reading for today. We do have a little time if anybody wants to share anything that moved for you, any insights you had or questions. Or And if anybody has a copy of the book, if you want to share it with somebody who wants to just look at the pictures, there's color pictures in every chapter. You can see of Babaji, that's on Dr. Chauhan and I.
So congratulations, it's really nice.
Thank you.
So while you're reading, I was thinking of the book from Elizabeth Gilbert, Eat, Pray and Love.
Yeah,
So she also had an Amma experience.
yeah.
So I was curious, like, if you were give a title like that, what would be your book's title? I mean, just a few words, like Eat, Pray and Love. Would it be pray and...
I would say that there's a book title expert named Dowji, because he hates the title of my book. So you name it, Dowji. I like my title, I don't know, but Dowji can tell you that.
No, it's not about the title. It's about the, Eat, Pray and Love is like about, like her journey to the spirituality, to falling in love, So your style was pretty much, I'm feeling that. First time I read the book, your style was like that. I was like, oh my God, this is Elizabeth Gilbert.
It's similar.
It's similar to that,
Yeah.
So what would where are you taking your audience to?
You have to see.
Have to wait.
Yeah, you have to wait. Go ahead, Dowji.
I would suggest My Guru's Grace, and then as a subtitle, Hard Lessons.
Okay, my Guru's
From
Grace,
my-
Hard Lessons.
Hard Lessons for My Guru, or
Okay.
something like this. But the title should be shorter
Okay,
and like punchy. Like
okay. Can we add Nutella in there somehow? Because that's an important piece. Nutella? Something like Nutella, something and something. Why don't we work on it as a group? You guys can all think of good titles, but My Guru's Grace.
And then have to think about the subtitle
Yeah.
to say the lessons.
Ding, ding, and ding. Something.
Something about lessons.
It's a good question.
Well, yeah, I mean, Eat, Pray and Love.
Take the mic.
Eat, Pray and Love is more karmic, materialistic kind of
Mhm.
thing. This is more spiritual. It could be like, now if Elizabeth Gilbert would write a book, she would write something like that, you know.
Mhm.
So if she reads the book, I mean, she will say, oh my God, this is what I want,
Yeah.
So I was thinking, something deeper essence to it. What would deeper essence would you give it to your book? Like pray and be liberated, pray and be happy.
There's not a lot of praying in here. This is about my ahankara. It's about really introspecting and seeing all the things that I missed in my life because I was too proud.
So your ankara was being
Blocking my ability to appreciate things, to see things clearly, to even understand what the heck Babaji was trying to get me to see. There's the whole book on ahankara. So I would say the PR is right, but not pray. Proud. Proud, prouder, and proudest or something.
But
No, I don't know.
You
But
had
it's something
not.
around
You
that.
had not taken Diksha at that time. You had even not met Babaji when you wrote the Ayurveda book, right?
Right.
So how Babaji was?
This is just because
Helping
everyone's
you
going to say,
at
how
that
did you meet Babaji? That's why I wrote that chapter. All the rest are about him. But I was proud there too before I met Babaji, and I was proud after I met Babaji.
Well, that's what I was trying to find out. Like, if that mystical mercy of Babaji, the Kirpa of Babaji, was there with you, did you like? How, do you think your book is about that essence of his mercy even there before when you met him? Would you like say that?
Yeah.
That's what's going on. That's what I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't like to say that. I mean, that's good for you to maybe think or something, but to me, I just like to focus on something that's, because how would that help people? How would that help for you to relate it to your story?
Of course, it will help because it'll give hope, and the hope will turn into faith. So isn't that like?
But if
everyone's
your
looking for-
ahankara is too big and blocking you, you're not going to even catch it. You're not going to get the mystical part. You're just going to be in a dreamland. Like I thought Amma was going to be feeling happy that I gave her the book, and she's going to basically feel blessed by me giving her a book. So the point that I want to make throughout the whole thing is the power of the ahankara to block you from anything good in your life.
Okay,
It's very practical.
Yeah, I have more questions. Let's stop at that. Someone else can.
Okay.
speak.
And you can participate in the group online too. I'm going to be on there too this week. Okay, thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
questions.
Thank you.
Vilas, you're going to say something?
I have a question about this lesson learned. You wrote here, accept rejection with an attitude of gratitude and keep moving on. Could you give some example of how this would practically look like to be grateful for the rejection and keep moving on? To me it looks as if you actually kept moving on because right after you were in the ashram, you then asked Dr. Chauhan to please give your feedback. So you were like, working on it, improving. So what could you have been? What could you have done better?
What do you think? Can you repeat the question?
So my question is, how could you have been more grateful and kept moving on? To me, it looks as if you kept moving on. Maybe the grateful part didn't shine through so much.
Good one to think about. This is a class for thinking. I mean, the question is good, but I don't want to just be like the ATM dispenser, just giving the answer. I want you to think. Analyze. Think about it. A lot of these lessons are written by Babaji also. He's wrote a lot. I mean, I would say it and then he'd add something, like keep moving on or something, So it's probably pretty deep. So try to chew on it and think more. Not so superficially, just what you heard. That's why I was pointing out, look what Ahankara was doing, look what it was doing here, competicism, competing, criticizing, thinking I'm always right. So try to review again and see. Do you want to say something, Natalie?
I mean, I've been really touched by this story, this first one, because I can relate to the rejection wound. And what I feel when I read your story is that how hurt you were. Yeah. You've been through all these such painful and deep and intense emotions. It's just reeling up and down, up and down, up and down, and we can really see how the ego is kind of hurting you, going through all this emotional journey. And yeah, I mean, so finally, and then okay, in the story, maybe we don't feel how you felt at that time so intensely, except if we do have some rejection wound.
Exactly.
We can relate to this.
If you have empathy, then you're going to feel it yourself, and then you'll see how can I be accepting rejection with the attitude of gratitude when I'm reeling myself,
It's
exactly.
impossible. It's impossible to...
Exactly. So if you're reading my feelings and you're connecting to those and trying to remember a time in your life when you felt like that, then you see I was not accepting with an attitude of gratitude, rejection at all. And I didn't really move on. I mean, I moved on eventually, but you don't really see how it wasn't that, quick.
Actually, that was a grace that you had with Chauhan just right after, just right away.
And that I even thought to ask him.
Yeah.
But that was only because I was so smashed. My Ahankara was so smashed and shattered. Otherwise, I would have never asked him. Like, just think about it. He was my friend for years. Shouldn't I have thought to ask him to review the book? I mean, that would have been common sense if your ego wasn't so big. If my ego wasn't so big, I should have thought, oh, it's Dr. Chauhan. I'm talking to him every week. I had a team of therapists I was training in Ayurvedic psychology, which is different than Vedic. But through Dr. Chauhan, we meet once a month. I'd get the team of the therapist on the Zoom call, and he would train us. So we were in touch very regularly. So why is it that I didn't say, hey, I wrote a book on Ayurveda that I've been writing for a year. Would you want to look at it? Why? Ahankara. I thought I was smart, proud, better than him. I knew everything. So Amma saw that. She smashed it, and that's why I was out of desperation and a smashed Ahankara that I'm like, Dr. Chauhan, please. Krishnadan. Good, Ladali, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I feel very related to that story. Actually, it's the first, but I remember when I was reading that with my wife, we was laughing and touched at the same time. And I just feel very related in 2 points. Like the first one is this part of Amma, when you was having all of these thoughts of what will happen. I had something similar with Babaji. Actually, I had one experience when I wrote to him such an email. You just don't think it was like a PDF, because I write that because I wanted him to know like in what I can be useful for him. So I make like a CV like this, And I was thinking like, okay, I will show you all what I have done and everything, And his reply, his reply was just like a hammer. Like I was just sending him that, and he was telling like, okay, after the bluff of your ego or your hamkara, like I really need you to sleep in time, because I have a huge problem sleeping late. So he asked me only one instruction at that time.
So you showed this huge TV, and he's like, "You need to sleep on time."
Yes, you first need to, you know?
Exactly.
So I remember how I feel. I remember how I feel, and it was probably like maybe not same, but what I was feeling with Amma was like very tough. And the second part is this moment when like you start to realize that actually you had like probably all of this proudness and all of these things, and that this is not the way to come into the to enter actually into the real realm of love, let's say. So I'm still let's say like learning about that, but that story was particularly useful because I had a guru before. So this moment when you change from one to another, maybe you didn't develop much about the story there, how you change and how it breaks your heart or not or this, but the only fact that you show that you was with someone and then you change make me remember all the gap of feelings I have between one and the other.
Yeah.
And the whole process to accept another sincerely is very hard anyway. It's like a cleaning process and forgiveness. Many things must happen there. So these 2 points was
Thank you very
meaningful
much.
for me.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here. So for those, I don't want to go over because I want to give people time to, so please write on the discussion board. If you've registered, you're already in there. You can just get in there. If you haven't registered, go ahead and register and write on there. And then we're going to continue the discussion next week. I'm going to ask you what insights you got based on this. I don't want to just speed on to the next story. I want to slow it down and see if each person can share some sort of insight related to this story, in particular related to your ahankara. Because the ahankara party continues, right, Daoji? Ahankara party continues.
Actually inspired me to write my book.
Oh, that's nice.
Envious.
Okay, Mom, thank you for being here. It was so nice to have you on the call. Bye. Bye, you guys. Thank you guys all for being here online, too. See you on the discussion board. Haribol.